Scene one, roll one, scene one, take one. Jacquie, promos?
I started with Jacquie Jordan Inc. a decade and a half ago. Then we went to TVGuestpert, and now we are Front and Center Podcast. So where are we going in 2020 with pop culture? Well, in order to answer that question, we need to talk about what happened in the last decade. In the last year, we've had many reunion shows. We've had Will and Grace. We had 90210 with the deceased Luke Perry right before that started. We also saw the return of Mad About You with Paul Reiser and Helen Hunt, and we watched Roseanne Barr get barred from her own show, which was quite a surprise and abrupt and controversial in the moment that it happened. So there was a lot of end-of-decade storytelling in our television shows. We also watched the media really change, especially in the last decade. We saw digital media platforms step up while we watch syndicated broadcast television shows take a step back. One of the bigger things that have come to the forefront for me as a content creator is the disparity in the generations that has really become more distinguished in the last generation between the baby boomers, the displaced, missing Gen X group, the millennials who are very loud and very participatory, and then the up-and-coming army of 80 million Gen Zers. Some of the biggest change we've seen in the last decade with the millennials is how they have changed what an influencer is. The Kardashians take the lead in that, and Kylie Kardashian, a millennial in her own right, who has become the first self-made billionaire, as declared by Forbes magazine, has become what many businesses and brands hope to aspire to, which is the self-made influencer who has monetized it through their handheld. The tech industry has really taken over. If I were to quantify what happened in the last decade, I would simply say that we went from life outside of our cell phones to life inside of our cell phones, where we can order anything instantly, from groceries to car service to packages delivered within 24 hours to our doorstep. And we've become citizen journalists with our cell phones and our iPhones and our smartphones. We can even drive our cars now with our smartphones. And the smartphone has only been around for 12 years, so it happened at the end of the last decade, and it has changed entirely the content, the accessibility, the way we live, the way we function, the way we storytell. We operate our homes off of smartphones as well, turning on and off appliances. And Rosie, I always think of the Jetsons. Everything in the Jetsons has come true for those of us who remember the Jetsons with the advent of the smartphone. But that's where content and storytelling has taken shape, taken form, and citizen journalism has become the way that we actually storytell. In reviewing this last year and looking at the last decade, I looked at it from the perspective of storytelling and from the images that we all post. And one of the things that I get to witness is how our world has become a lot smaller, and how, because of our accessibility to smartphones, countries and places that have been slower to the current technology that we experience here in our culture, in our country, have made it accessible across the world and very interconnected. Everything's instantaneous, and there is no waiting time or deferred time in that. And I think things are going to speed up and get a lot faster. And with that, it's going to be interesting to see who holds the responsibility in that, because there is going to be no delay to the consequence of such instantaneous, whether it's ordering something or saying something. And we've already seen that in the last couple years, how devastatingly consequential, things that people think and say immediately have, not only for themselves, but also on the culture as a whole. So I think we're going to be looking at a lot of that type of change and consequence in the next decade. And as a result of that, I would even add to it and say that it has forced truth behind things to come forward, because things can't stay hidden from the delay that we used to experience, and because of the instantaneous of connection, connectivity, communication, and connection, nothing can stay hidden that is deceptive, manipulative, or not in the highest good for all concerned. And so I think that's going to be something we're going to be experiencing more, and we're going to see that as content makers, especially in the collective in the next decade, really taking shape. We saw a lot of king's men go down like a fire through the Me Too movement. We saw Bill Cosby, Charlie Rose, Roger Ailes, Matt Lauer, Harvey Weinstein. It was Les Moonves. It was a time period of a lot of king's men being taken down for the same reason. We are all collectively demanding truth, integrity, and transparency from all of our leaders. What would I like to see in 2020 in the television industry, in the film industry? I would like to see more content creators be able to participate successfully in getting their messages and their voice out and seen and heard in the world on a larger scale. Check our podcast out, Front and Center with Jacquie Jordan, at frontandcenterpodcast.com. Find us on YouTube, subscribe, like, or comment.
I can't lose.